This podcast is brought to you by eHarmony, the dating app to find someone you can be yourself with. Why doesn't eHarmony allow copy and paste in first messages? Because you are unique, and your conversations should reflect that. eHarmony wants you to find someone who will get you. How are you going to know who gets you if people send you the same generic conversation starters they message everyone else? Conversations that actually help you get to know each other. Imagine that. Get who gets you on eHarmony. Sign up today.
Acast powers the world's best podcasts. Here's a show that we recommend.
What is The Briefing Room? It's a behind-the-scenes look at how the criminal justice system works and the lives of the people within that system.
If you love true crime, well, these are the real people who do the job every day of making sure justice is served.
Hi, I'm Detective Dave.
I'm Detective Dan. Together, we have decades of experience in local law enforcement, a profession that we think is often misunderstood.
So we're going to explore how to do it right, and we won't shy away from when it's done wrong. These are stories you'll hear nowhere else. Unique, frank, and unvarnished.
From the team that brought you Small Town Dicks, this is The Briefing Room. Episode 1 drops on August 30th.
We'll meet you in the briefing room.
Acast helps creators launch, grow, and monetize their podcasts everywhere. Acast.com.
Stop laughing. What the fuck?
A+ silence. Someone mute Terry.
Jesus Christ. All right.
This happens at least half of the episodes. Like, we're so bad at this. Like,
do we need 10 more now? Did we all fuck it up?
I think we did. That's fine. You know, at this point, we're just gonna go. It's fine.
And welcome back to Scarred for Life, the podcast where we open up old wounds by looking back at the films that scared us as kids. I'm Terry.
And I'm Mary Beth.
And each episode, our special guest or guests bring with them a movie that traumatized them as a child. And these guests are already making me laugh.
This week, our guests are Powell Robinson and Patrick Young, also known as P Squared, apparently, the filmmakers behind Theshold, which is currently streaming on Arrow. Welcome to the show, guys.
Thanks for having us. Hey, everyone. Wow, you sounded so excited, dude.
I know. I was gonna say, okay, wow, we've turned it down. But we're so excited to chat with you about Theshold because it was one of my favorites at Night Street.
Yeah, us too.
Salem?
Yeah, there it is.
Salem.
Salem?
I'm so sorry. I'm sorry. That was so embarrassing. I knew I was trying to remember to not make.
They were
myself look like
happening
an
at the
asshole.
same time, and there were like 5 festivals, and they were
all started
great.
with S. All of them. So, yeah.
Shitfest, Salem.
Yeah.
Well, the problem was that like I was covering Nightstream and I wasn't covering Salem, and I was like, I don't think this one was at Nightstream because I probably would have seen it then.
Yep, But at Salem, this was like, I watched it. I had it was on the schedule. I was like, oh, this sounds great, and it was one of my absolute favorites of the festival and like the festival circuit last year. So I'm super excited to talk with you guys.
Us too. Thank you so much. We probably wouldn't be here if we hadn't gotten into Salem. They've helped us a ton.
Kay is amazing.
Kay
is
the
the best.
I love
Kay
Kay.
is the best.
So before we,
sorry.
Let's just keep talking about Kay, I think.
Yeah.
Former guest of the show too. But so before we do get to talk, God, this has just gone off the rails.
You can do it.
So before we do talk about Threshold, let's take it all the way back. How did you both get introduced to horror?
Patrick.
Okay. My mom just fed it to me. One of my earliest memories of watching movies was we had kept all of the VHSs in the closet in my bedroom because we were only in like a 2-bedroom apartment, and VHSs take up a lot of space.
Oh, they sure do.
And so I would look at all of them, and I'd always I'd choose the scariest looking VHSs and come out and like, hey, can we watch this one today? Like, this is like kindergarten Patrick, knowing she would say no. And like, okay, we won't watch Silence of the Lambs today. But then one day she agreed, and it was Jaws, and she told me, she swore to me that she would warn me before all the scary parts, and she forgot about the kid. She forgot about the kid on the floaty.
No.
Yeah. I was like the scariest scene in the movie.
The scariest part.
I cried and hated her, and then we watched it again a couple days later, and I loved it. And for that, she just fed me like all the franchises. We'd go to Blockbuster, and I'd go, okay, today's Amityville 4, and then Amityville 5, and then Highlander 2, 3, 4, 5, Poltergeist 1, 2, 3, and I just went through as many as I can. Just as long as I've been watching movies, it's felt like I've been watching horror movies.
What a movie to be introduced to the genre with, too. I mean, that's like an all-timer right there.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's her favorite movie. We grew up with 2 movie posters in our house, and it was Goldfinger and Jaws.
Oh, range.
And
I love it.
Yeah.
Jaws was the first horror movie that I also saw, and at a very young age. But it was because my grandfather didn't think about what it would, like, the effect it would have on me as a child. And I didn't have a cool mom that was like, okay, well, I guess almost all the way, like, prepared you for it. But yeah, I didn't go swimming for a very long time.
Actually, my mom, it had a similar effect on my mom, and I wrote a really crappy Lifetime movie that's on Netflix called Pretty Little Stalker, and in it, the mother, she writes books, and I needed her to have like some kind of like the evil stalker girl needed to like threaten her or whatever. And so I made the mom afraid to go in the pool because she never learned how to swim because of Jaws. And so there's a scene in this movie where the stalker girl starts backing her up to the pool, and we're like, oh, she can't swim because she saw Jaws.
I love that.
Oh my God, that is incredible.
Yeah, you should definitely check out both of Patrick's Lifetime movies. They are
not that one. The other one's the other one's trashy fun because I watched a bunch of like drive-in 70s, 80s flicks like Malibu High while watching it, but this one's bad. This one's bad.
Is the other one My Teacher, My Obsession?
Yes!
Yes! I was hoping that was it.
Yep, that's it.
5 stars.
Wow.
So I was trying to think about how it started for me. All I remember is I torrented a copy of The Evil Dead in like middle school or something off of some early torrent thing, and like waited till my parents were asleep because they both weren't horror buffs, and so I saw that, got obsessed. We went on like a family trip with a cousin of mine, and that was beforehand. Holy shit, we were way younger. Sorry, I just got my timeline fucked up. I was like 6 or 7, and my cousin and I went on a trip with both of our families, and we heard about this movie, The Shining, and had no idea what it was, and our parents wouldn't let us watch it, but we learned that like red rum was a thing in it. So our poor parents had these 2, like we were matching ages, kids running around these hotel rooms in the dark, like yelling red rum.
No.
Did you know?
No, neither of us knew what we were doing. We just had heard red rum was relevant, and like these, like perfect aged matching kids saying like red rum in the dark, and I'm sure our parents fucking hated us. And then the Evil Dead thing happened, and then it was all down or uphill depending how you look at it from there.
Wow.
That's cool.
I'm just imagining hearing like phantom children voices screaming red rum in a hotel room. I know how I would have left immediately. I would have been like, no, absolutely not.
Was it snowing?
It was sadly it was the wrong kind of hotel. We were in like San Diego near the beach, but it was night. I had half of it right.
We've been asked this question like 50 times, and I've never heard that answer before.
I totally forgot until I talked to my mom a couple days ago.
It's wild that you haven't been triggered, because my answer usually includes The Shining.
Yeah, I just straight up forgot. I don't know. It's been a long couple months getting this movie out into the world.
I bet.
Yeah, I can understand that.
There's just two of us on the team now at this point. So on the post team delivering it at least. So it's been a lot.
That's wild. So besides those films that you mentioned, what were some of your other horror favorites growing up?
Well, I should say, other than my mom, and this also started with my family. I mean, my main horror draw has always been Stephen King.
Mm-hmm.
My grandmother, I was visiting her one day, and I could see, I think I was in 3rd grade. I could see her kind of getting in a tussy, kind of upset, and she's like, "I'm not gonna finish this book. It's too scary. I can't do it." I was like, what is happening? She's like, "Some bushes are moving around and it's too scary for me and I'm not gonna finish it." And I was like, that doesn't sound very scary. Give me the book and I'll read it. And it was The Shining.
The Shining,
and, it scared the shit out of me because I was in 3rd grade. But it quickly indoctrinated me into this. And so, I mean, 4th grade, I was walking to class with like, Tommyknockers and Needful Things and like some Tom Clancy books. And my teachers, like, I shit you not once, I called home like, "Hey, is it okay your kid is reading this stuff? Like, is this allowed?"
Your son is reading Tom Clancy. How old is he really?
Your son's walking around talking about like, this book's teaching him how to make a bomb at home. Is everything okay?
You know what though? That scene in the book of The Shining with the brush that's moving and it's like the shape of animals and they leap and attack. What's his name? Halloran. They attack
Halloran.
Halloran. When I was a kid, I was so upset that the Shining movie didn't have that in it. Like I went into the Shining movie so pissed because all of the things that I loved about the book were exactly.
Where is the topiary? Where is the haunted topiary? Is that how you say that? Topiary? Is that what like the animal?
That's correct.
Look at me. Anyway, sorry.
I'm so proud of you.
About
This is also an educational show now. Yeah.
Yes.
It is.
The word of the day is topiary, everybody.
When you had like a noise banger for every time someone says it, if you can work that into a conversation at any time, you get points or something. I don't know. What about you, Powell? What other movies did you like growing up? Horror movies.
So I had a great. It was really cool. My high school actually had a film class that kind of it extended through all of high school, and so every year got a little tougher. But I had a great teacher who, when I told him I was into camera work and lighting, he's like, "You got to check out Suspiria." And so I was like a freshman in high school, and he was like, "Just find a way to watch it." So I got to
just find a way.
So I saw Suspiria, and that blew my mind. And then the other one that wasn't, it's technically more on the thriller side, but this was still a distinct memory from that same formative film class of it was Hard Candy. I saw too. And how that movie was shot, like, basically affected how I shot everything for the next 6 years or so till I grew out of it. But I was obsessed. I was like, high shutter angle on everything. Everything has to be sharp and spooky looking. And so that had a. Yeah, that one was.
That was Patrick Wilson, right?
It was.
Yeah.
And Elliot Page.
Yep.
Yeah.
But then, I started to go through the classics with a couple of friends of mine. Just same deal, in wherever we could grab them from when we were still under 17, and torrenting stuff to watch. Anything we could. Original Texas Chainsaw, Hellraiser, First Nightmare.
Man, I think of how like different things are for young kids, young adults finding movies now, or especially at the boom back in like, early 2000s, because I mean, I grew up, with the 80s and stuff, and it was basically what you could get at your local store that you could maybe either convince the shopkeep to give you, or like your parents to like.
You needed a hookup at a Blockbuster who was like your friend's older brother who could like slip you, the R-rated stuff.
Right, exactly.
I mean, and most of my middle school, high school experience was just like, what's popular on uTorrent today? What's like LimeWire and BearShare? Like, oh, what's this weird Shaitan movie? Okay, we'll watch that.
Oh god,
that's what I did too.
Yeah, a lot of that.
Yeah, Pirate Bay was my best friend.
There we go. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I remember torrenting Peeping Tom because my friend and I were like, that sounds fun. It wasn't. It was awful. Like, it was horrifying. I was like, And then I think we also did I Spit on Your Grave, and we were both like, "What's wrong with us?" I think we were in high school, and I don't think I processed those movies until much later. But yeah, the internet really gives you access to some weird shit, huh?
Yeah, it sure does.
It sure does, especially if you end up in the wrong place.
Yeah. So as adults, do either of you still get scared or feel that like childhood fear that you had when you were a kid watching movies?
Only occasionally. I think Patrick and I actually both had a difficult time finding movies because both of us were like, not too many things scared us when we were young.
Yeah, we were just fascinated by these movies, you know.
Okay.
I mean, other than going back, you know, super young, like that Jaws experience, but most of it, like, aliens, this is so cool. How did they do this? It was like, look at the majesty of the horror. It was kind of most of our attitudes. But every once in a while, one would sneak in, and one still does sneak in every once in a while. Yeah.
Do you remember what the last one that scared you was?
Terrified.
Oh.
Yeah.
Terrified scared the shit out of me.
Yeah, that one got me too.
Like right from the start.
Well, I think I watched it because you told me that too. You're like, dude, I know we haven't seen a scary one in a while. You've got to check this out. And then I watched it immediately after.
On Shudder.
Yep. Wow, what a plant. Nice work.
I saw that at Telluride in the auditorium, inebriated, and it was a horrendous experience.
I bet.
It's terrifying. That movie really was terrifying.
True to its title.
It'd be fun. I was like, oh, it's supposed to be scary. Let me like shut my door, turn the lights off, put on noise canceling headphones. I was, obviously like not young, and I couldn't sleep. I was like, I had to turn the lights on like halfway through the movie. I was like, nope, absolutely fucking not.
We've definitely gotten grossed out together though. Like we did a double feature of Salo, 120 Days of Sodom, and the Serbian film 1 year in college.
What's wrong with you?
Yeah,
I was writing an essay on them. It was for a class. I swear.
Wow.
Yeah,
wow.
That was a hardcore 4 hours of 5 hours.
I hate a Serbian film. I don't. Yeah. There are only 3 movies, like 2 movies in existence that I actively shit on because like I like to be generally nice, but a Serbian film's one of them. I hate it. I think it's garbage. I think anything with like baby violence in it, I just can't get past.
What's the other movie?
Human Centipede 2.
Yeah, that's fair. Yep.
Baby violence. I just can't get past baby violence. Like I can watch fucked up stuff. I can get through like necromantic and whatever else is out there. But if it's a baby, you lost me.
I've not seen any of these films.
That's fair. I haven't seen a Serbian film because I don't want it in my brain.
You don't need it in your brain.
Yeah. And then I figured I watched the first Human Centipede, and I think I saw all that I needed to see about people getting stitched together from mouth to ass. I think
there's only so much ass to mouth a person can take in their lifetime.
Yeah.
It's funny.
I met the ass. I can't remember his name. But you know when your friends...
You would recognize his ass if you saw it.
Yeah, you know when your friends are like, oh, come to my my stand up or whatever, 2 drink minimum, there will be 10 people there, kind of a deal.
Oh yeah.
Well, my girlfriend had a friend who needed us to show up for them, and we did. And one of the 5 people doing stand-up was the ass of the Human Centipede.
Was it part of his stand-up routine, though?
No.
That seems like a severe misuse of his history.
It does.
It really does.
Right?
But I got a picture with him.
Did you really?
Yeah, I did.
Did you get a picture with his ass out?
No.
Oh, see, that's a mistake too.
So many missed opportunities. How did you know he was the ass? How did that come up in conversation? Like, that's the ass from Human Centipede. With the first one or the second one?
The first one.
Okay, the first one. Okay. How'd that come up?
No, the other person who was, because these people were like part of a troupe or a class, or they knew each other. And so the person we knew up on stage knew.
Okay.
This was their background.
That's amazing. That is amazing.
He gave me his business cards, like, hey, if you're doing more horror movies, like,
do I have an ass
nice
for you?
Wow. Wow.
Wow.
Okay. So to transition from
No. We should definitely keep talking about this for way too long.
Let's talk about Threshold.
Fine.
Transition from asses to Threshold, your film.
I was trying to come up with a segue, and what can you say? Can you tell our listeners a little bit about Threshold and what it's about?
Yeah, I mean...
No. Actually, we don't know why we're here.
I was trying to think of a funny way to connect the ass to this, but that story will come later.
What the fuck?
Yeah, Threshold is our family drama road trip horror movie that we shot over the course of 12 days with 2 iPhones, with no script and only 5 people along for the journey. It follows Virginia and Leo, a strange brother and sister who haven't talked for a long time, have a fraught history. She's had a history with drugs. He's going through a divorce. Now she claims to be cursed and connected to some random stranger as part of a cult ritual, and has to help her find him.
Or determine if she's just crazy.
Right.
So what was the inspiration for this story?
So I actually had this, the germ for this idea in high school. I was going to write this short story about this couple. I think they were going to be a lesbian couple, and one of them got into this black market drug that in high school I was calling physical marriage, that bound 2 people and they felt each other, what they were feeling, and it was going to like accentuate sexual feelings and all of this kind of stuff. And she accidentally gets dosed and connected to the wrong person, and they have to go track that person down. I never ended up writing that short story. I just kept the idea as like a log line in my books throughout the years. And then, when we finally decided we want to make something, and we wanted to make something on the road, I was going through my list of ideas, and this was the one that fit perfectly.
Wow. So did you guys film this during like COVID? Was this before?
Yeah, it was the year before.
Okay.
And so you filmed everything on iPhones, correct?
We did.
What was that like?
It was excellent and also very difficult. I mean, we were able to get away with doing so much because no one knew that we were filming a movie. I mean, we, like the cafe scene at the beginning, we were straight up just in a fully functional cafe back alleyway. Like there were actual customers and like it was active, and we just had these 2 little tripods with the cameras kind of tucked, or the phones tucked up against our table so no one would really know what we were doing and we weren't obstructing anything. And we filmed a full dialogue scene there. It was great. And so that part of it was really fun. I mean, we stole every location we could. Anyone on our crew could shoot at any time because it wasn't like a big ass cinema camera that you'd have to pull focus on and know all the settings for. You could just kind of pick up your phone, open the app that we were using, Filmic Pro, and kind of just go. The downsides are that phones are not cinema cameras.
Yeah.
And they are not built to withstand certain climate conditions that a cinema camera might weather through better. So we were shooting occasionally, was one scene on top of, it's Brian's Head Pass Peak, right, in Utah?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And it was sunset, and it was 11 degrees going down, and there was wind, so it was probably closer to 0. And the phones kept freezing, and so we'd have to and it would start to the image would kind of get choppy, and so we'd have to run the phones to the car, put them in front of the vents, and heat them up, and then run them back outside and keep rolling. And we had like 30 minutes because the sun was setting. And conversely, we shot down in El Centro as well, down by the border, and it was very hot down there. And we had a whole exterior scene, and the phones overheated while we were there, so we had to do the same thing but with AC on for the vents as well. So we were fighting some interesting tech things while also getting away with a movie we literally could not have done any other way.
So how many phones did you guys have?
Officially 2.
And occasionally our actors. I think we used it for like a couple wide, like maybe 2 wide shots, but for the majority of it was just Powell and I's phone.
Yeah.
Wow. Holy shit.
The other thing I was thinking of, because I mean, I've filmed some things on my phone before, and just how much storage it takes up on your phone. I can imagine like the technical side of, trying to film and then having to put it on a computer or something, right? Because there is a finite amount of storage.
The biggest issue was that, unlike, again, an actual normal camera, you could just take the card out of the camera, dump it on your laptop, and keep shooting.
Right.
But with the phones, it's you plug it in and you sync it like you're normally syncing your phone, and so it takes a while.
It takes forever.
And we did comically shoot in 4K in Filmmaker Pro on our phones.
Hell yeah!
Because we anticipated someone down the line might ask for it, and we didn't want to be hindered on the delivery front. As funny as it is to say we shot a 4K iPhone movie, it's true. So yes, we had to be really careful, especially on an improv movie where all the scenes occasionally could run for 12 minutes at a time.
Well, that's the other thing I was thinking of, because you had said that you really didn't have much of a script in the way going in this. Then that I can just imagine, gosh, just that kind of issue, as well as trying to keep it hot, keep it cold, keep it.
Yeah, it was it was totally unique. Again, the actors also talked about really liking not having to wait on setups and being able to just shoot when they felt good. And we could steal things if we were on the road and we all were feeling something like, oh, we can do this one scene that's my phone call to my wife here because it looks cool and I'm feeling it. And so we just pull over and do it.
It's also less intimidating to have, just to be acting around an iPhone as opposed to, a 50-pound camera. For a movie that had to be and feel as natural as this one, I thought this is pretty important. We couldn't fit, two larger cameras in a car. We had to shoot two simultaneously, and we'd be crossing each other the entire time.
Yeah, I was just thinking about that because, I mean, on one hand, it's sleek and it does allow you to film in places like the car that make it a lot easier to use. So you mentioned earlier about the filming in front of the coffee shop. Was that the same way with the karaoke club?
Yeah.
There's a lot of funny things about I'm sure I'll forget one or two as I explain some of it, and Patrick will fill in those gaps. But I mean, among other things, my favorite one was one of our actors was a little nervous about going up to do it, and so we thought it would be great to,
Madison had never done karaoke, so I had never done karaoke on my own. I'd only done it with a group.
So Patrick and I put our names in to do a couple songs beforehand, and we're at a janky karaoke bar, mind you. So the tracks they have are not great, and
I don't know, I was pretty surprised they had mine.
But it also was such a bastardized version of yours.
The quality, the quality of the tracks and
mine was
is rough.
3 octaves higher than it was supposed to be, and it was impossible, and I bombed. And then Patrick went up and chose "Tiptoe Through the little
tiptoe through the tulips" by Tiny Tim.
Oh my god!
And so you can imagine fucking middle of the country bar where a bunch of LA fucks ride through and just trash their night with terrible renditions of these songs. And then we have our actors go up and do the same song 3 times in a row. They were like, can you please get the fuck out of this bar?
After she won bingo too, she won their bingo game and then kept doing the same song on karaoke.
The most local bar, and we were the most obnoxious people. Yeah.
And the actors were wearing, their mic packs the whole time, and we were walking around filming them. And so one of I can't remember if he actually worked. I can't remember if he was a waiter or
it was the bartender.
The bartender, he comes over and he's like, I marked you guys when you came in. I was in the military and I saw you guys had some equipment with you, and I just wanted to make sure you weren't starting something.
Yeah.
Oh shit.
He was clearly not old enough to be in the military division he said he was in.
It was something high up, and I was like, oh man.
He was an intelligence officer, but he was clearly 19 or 20. And we were just like, all right, kid. Sure, you could, you could bar, but
yeah, you could feel the room turning on us. Because I would honestly say the first hour there was pretty fun. We were spending money. We had only done 1 song each. It felt okay. And then once we did the song a second time, the whole room really, really turned on us, and it felt uncomfortable.
Yeah. Our names are actually on the background of the screen, though, in the movie, if you look at it, because Patrick and I went up to do another song in between the 2 renditions. So you'll see up next is Powell and Patrick in the movie itself.
Oh my god. I love that you guys were doing your own karaoke throughout. That's so fun. It makes it feel so much it feels natural. It's not just you're forcing them to go to a soundstage and do karaoke. Y'all are just doing karaoke and being funny together, which I think is really cool.
Now, okay, did you say that you were filming this in the middle of the country?
Yeah, that was the middle of Utah.
Okay.
Oh boy.
Because I was gonna say I live in the middle of the country. I live in Nebraska, and I can just imagine if two people came into the bar, to like one of the karaoke bars, and were singing that Tiny Tim song. I could just imagine the response.
Dude. Rough.
Yes.
In a place I think typically dominated by mostly like AC/DC and country hits, and we came in swinging with Queens of the Stone Age and Tiny Tim, and they were like, "Please go away." Please.
was that the other group?
Yeah, that was
Queens
mine.
of the Stone Age.
It was no one knows, but like the
that's a great one.
What is it? Alto. That's the highest opera. What is it? The top of the range. It was like in my double falsetto. I could barely manage it. It was horrendous. Yeah.
There's actually a scene we cut from the movie. In the same way we were doing karaoke to make them feel more comfortable. We thought, what if Leo's character did that in the movie for her as well? And it was really nice, and it just didn't fit in, and also music rights and everything. What was the song he sang to her, pal?
Oh, Brandy.
Yeah. I mean, it was a really nice, sweet little scene of Leo singing Brandy to his sister, and it just didn't fit.
I got it wrong. Alto's the lowest. That was my bad.
Soprano, right?
Yeah.
You're supposed to be the music one.
I played the drums, dude. I don't know what singing is. That is an interesting part about all this movie, too, though, is Patrick and I definitely had a lot of our own lives interjected into these two characters. By Patrick, thank you, by the way. He wrote in the kind of the musical history because I had gone through college thinking I was going to go into music. I'd been in two bands, and they both broke up, and it was kind of life-changing for me. And Patrick is brother to many sisters, so both the characters.
And our producer Lauren Bates was a young mother, and had to choose a lot of professional versus motherhood and balancing those kinds of acts. So a lot of that went in there too. And then obviously the actors poured their fucking hearts out.
I was going to say the actors, the performances from both of them. I mean, they Joey Millen and Madison West, they felt like brother and sister.
Mm-hmm.
They have such chemistry together. It worked incredibly well.
Yeah, which is something that, from the start, auditioning them together was very obvious.
I can imagine.
That's amazing. Okay, so we've talked about Threshold, we've talked about your horror history, but P Squared, Powell and Patrick, what film are we talking about today?
We are talking about 2007's Funny Games, the U.S. version.
Oh boy.
Funny Games, directed by 2007.
Yes.
I hate you.
McG for the TikTok error.
Oh my god.
God damn.
So, for those of you unfamiliar with Funny Games 2007, it is a direct. I can't. Damn it. It's an English language remake of the 1997 film of the same name by the same director, Michael Haneke. So Michael Haneke made two versions of his movie. That won't get confusing at all.
And they're almost shot for shot.
They're identical movies.
Yeah.
But so Funny Games is a deconstruction in the way violence is portrayed in the media. A family settles into their vacation home, which happens to be the next stop for a pair of young, articulate, white-gloved serial killers on an excursion through the neighborhood.
That was the best synopsis I think I've heard of that. That was nicely done.
Thank you, IMDb.
Thank you, IMDb.
All right. You could have just taken it and run with it. Yeah.
2007
honesty here on
IMDb.
this card. Okay.
All right,
so,
we'll see ourselves out. Thank you.
Bye.
And that was Funny Games, y'all.
Yep. That was our avant-garde interpretation of Funny Games.
It fits the movie.
It does. So, okay, how old were both of you when you saw this movie? Like, paint us your horror picture of when you first saw this and how it scarred you for life.
I was 15.
Yeah, I was 14.
Yeah, and I delved into, like I had mentioned before, at that point, mostly all of the franchises. It had been a lot of mainstream horror for me at that point. That's what I had access to. And I saw I'd seen, the first 2 Saw movies, and I saw the online advertising for the movie. It was just, it was like this advertisement where on the website you were allowed to control a golf club and like hit the ball towards people and like tease them. And it was like really fucked up and weird. I was like, what the fuck is this movie? And I did it like almost every day because it looked really weird. And it was advertised as, this sadistic, bloody horror movie. And I was like, I have to see this. It just feels like, all this other stuff that's coming out. And I finally, I think I bought it. I blind bought it at like a Virgin Video, or my mom bought it for me. Thanks, Mom.
Hey, Mom, can you buy me this movie I've never seen, but it's probably pretty sadistic?
I think I hid it under, or like I gave it to her in a stack of like Kill Bill Volume 2, and Funny Games. And she's like, oh yeah, no, it's just, all these movies. It's fine.
Hiding it between Kill Bill and Kill Bill 2. I mean, that's...
Well, when you read it just as the title, if you don't know what it is, like Kill Bill Funny Games and Kill Bill 2, like, oh, that sounds like the nice one in the group. So yeah.
I mean, my mom didn't know what this movie was. This didn't have, commercials during football games or anything. It wasn't a huge mainstream thing.
I mean, it could have been a remake of Funny Girl.
That's true. Or it could have been like a spin-off of a Jackass movie, like Funny Games starring Johnny Knoxville. And it's just... well,
directed by 2007, starring Johnny Knoxville.
I watched it for the first time. And the first time he turns towards... Or no, not even then. From the moment the screamo music started, like within the first 5 minutes, I was just like overwhelmed and disoriented. It's like, what the fuck am I watching? And I was just so completely unnerved in a way I don't think I have been since, except for, maybe Haneke's other movie, Seventh Continent, and like We Need to Talk About Kevin. Like it's such a specific under your skin fucked upness. And I don't think the first time I watched it, just because I was so overwhelmed, I got the whole like they're punishing the audience type thing. But the third or fourth time I did, and when I chose it as my high school group's movie night, I did.
Oh my god.
Welcome to being friends with Patrick, by the way, because that is a recurring theme in our life where we'll have a party and then it's like, wait, we should watch what did you pull out at our other Halloween?
Oh, the Mutilator?
The Halloween screening we did for no, it was a sequel. It was something 2. Was it Wrong Turn 2?
Oh, just Cabin Fever 2.
Cabin Fever 2. And like it's like why? Why are we putting our friends through this?
No, my favorite was I showed my mostly non-horror loving friend group The Mutilator, but I left about like halfway into the movie because I had to go somewhere, and I get like 10 minutes away, and I get like a string of 10 texts, like, really? Vagina hook? What the fuck, Patrick?
You just dropped that bomb and left the party?
Yeah.
I don't know what's better or worse, is doing that or us hosting like these Halloween events and then still like willingly being there and putting our friends through. I don't know. I think leaving's probably worse.
Also, they keep coming, so like...
Yeah. Maybe less so each year, but yeah.
Well, I was the friend that did the same thing. I made my friends watch Teeth.
Nice.
And I also made them watch Midnight Meat Train.
Nice.
Oh,
and they were all like, you're showing us porn. I'm like, I swear to God, this is the opposite of porn. And they were upset.
Hopefully for you.
But yes, I'm not allowed to pick the movies anymore for movie nights.
I have to watch my trash films at very specific hours, or my girlfriend will come in like, you're watching porn. No, it's Jesus Franco. It's trash. It's okay.
That's what my fiance does too. He walks in, he's like, what are you watching? And I tell him the name. He's like, yeah, that sounds about right. And then he'll just leave the room. He's like, are you screaming or someone else? I'm like, it's just this movie. Anyway.
I mean, Powell, how did Funny Games fuck you
Yeah.
up?
That's a great question. I think what got to me the first time was that, like, that period of horror was so interestingly, like, that was around the time we were getting things like House of Wax, or like very dimension filmy, sort of slightly, I don't know, slightly bigger slashers than slashers had gotten budgets for us, but it was still kind of surface level trash horror, and going through a lot of those at the time, and then coming upon Funny Games where you're just treated to like a static shot of a staircase, and you're like, this is fucking me up way more than any shot in any of those movies did. You're like, something is so wrong about, you just feel like what's coming, and it's horrific all the way through because they're so casual about how bad it's going to be the first like 20 minutes, and you just know it's going to get there, and you don't know when.
Yeah, it was the first movie to ever attack me with its style and its filmmaking. I mean, because there's purposefully no violence, and like you don't see any violence on screen. There's no nudity on screen. There's nothing that these movies usually give you. It's just all the reactions and the human element of it. It's terrifying.
Yeah. So you mentioned the kind of like there's a focus like on the staircase, and you're just waiting for something to happen. Honestly, for me, the most uncomfortable scene in this entire movie is the eggs. The way that sort of insidiously unfolds, where he's being all nice and he's asking for 4 eggs, and then he drops them, and then he's like, can I get 4 other eggs? And she's, obviously she has 12 eggs, so why can't you give me 4 more? You're not going to need them all. And just the way that scene just sort of unfold, and the focus on the mundaneness of it, where she's taking the towel and cleaning up the broken eggs, and and she's like, it's fine. He's like, I'm sorry. And he has this very baby face to him, the actor, that it's just like, it's a kid. Yeah. And it's that the way she's just cleaning up this mess, it like made me so anxious the entire time, because this was my first time watching it. So I knew kind of what was coming, but I didn't completely know what was coming. But that scene, just of all of them, even the ones including the violence, is the one that like just put a pit in my stomach.
Well, it's because she can't prove anything. It's so infuriating. It's this unwelcome visitor, and there's nothing to specifically point to. He's like, oh, did I do something? And she can't answer him. She's like, no, just go. I'm sure people can pick up on, and especially women can pick up on these things. I mean, I'd be curious, are you guys fans of the movie Mother? Because that movie is like an hour of just that.
Yeah.
It's just that for like an hour.
I hate that movie.
I loved that movie so much, but it was, I never want to watch it again, because particularly the scene in that movie for me was when everyone just kept sitting on the fucking counter, and she's like, please get off the counter. And then she turns around and they're sitting back up on that fucking counter. Yes, that is the same exact nervous energy I had through this egg scene.
Yep.
Well, and like one of the things, especially like when you realize this is all part of their plan, it's like it's so calculated and so performative in a way that's really uncomfortable, because again, you know what's coming, but just the way, like, you don't expect it to evolve over dropped eggs and an innocent guy, like an innocent looking guy, just like asking for a favor and for ingredients. And it's like, and then it's like this, apparently it's their same old song and dance. And then, oh God, that whole sequence in the opening hallway, because you go from the eggs to, they just break a guy's kneecap with a golf club. Like, it's just all of a sudden everything is shattered, including Tim Roth's knee. And it just spirals downhill from there.
Yeah, it's interesting. The planness of it all. That's definitely part of the meta-ness. Like the this repeats. This is going to happen again. You watch these movies and then you watch the sequel where it exactly happens again. I view this movie. It's kind of the tonal flip of Cabin in the Woods, right? It's playing on the tropes and your expectations, and where in Cabin in the Woods there were people in the movie controlling everything. In this movie, it's us and the audience, and these villains who want to see the violence. And we watch all these movies like Saw and Hostel and all the classic slashers where a lot of people say, oh, I root for the villains. And, here's Haneke. I mean, I don't think it's a coincidence that, this was made in 2007 when Saw and Saw 2 and Hostel were 03, 05.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, he's like, oh, look at these sick American fucks. They need to hear this.
Yep.
Look what you get. This is what that situation looks like in the real life.
Well, I'm glad you bring that up because I was thinking about how the original came out in 1997, and that was coming from the time of, Quentin Tarantino's films are becoming popular, and it was that sort of over-the-top violence of like Natural Born Killers, a movie that Haneke said he hates. And like all of that type of violence that was starting to brim up in films in the 90s. And then again, we have, as you mentioned, we're in the Hostels, but at this point in 2007, we've had 4 Saw movies at this point. Yeah. So we had like, and then we had these remakes of films like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre that were upping the violent quotient. And so you had, it definitely felt perfectly timed in relation in both times this movie was made as kind of a response to what was happening at the time in cinema.
Yeah, what's weird is I had such a radically different reaction this time around where when I watched it when I was younger and living in the middle of all, like you were saying, all those released movies, emotionally I felt this movie, and tension-wise I felt it so hard. What was weird this time around was I almost felt a sense of, I don't know, as the last year and a half have sucked on many levels, a definite sense of stress and like stress fatigue. Like I didn't have it in me to feel it this time. I like emotionally wasn't capable of feeling anything. I'm like, I've been so burned out. I still, I appreciate the craft of it, just not necessarily the creation. I think on the second watch through in the middle of this, just because I was like, man, I'm too tired for this shit. I texted Patrick in the middle, like, dude, this is miserable. I just
I don't think it's necessarily a movie meant to be rewatched, even if I have. I mean, I sent you the text, pal. I mean, he literally said, he wrote an essay after he made this movie called Media Plus Violence or something. I mean, he said, if you leave this movie, you don't need it. If you stay, you do. Basically. And he's been, Haneke, we can talk about timing, but he's also just always had this nihilistic thought. I mean, his first movie in 89, The Seventh Continent, talks about this almost the same exact thing.
Yeah, and then there's Benny's Video, which also does something similar. And I host another podcast called Watch Once Never Again, and we covered Haneke for our first director because we thought, why the fuck not just jump right into the deep end? And I watched 3 of his movies in 1 week, and 4 of his movies in 1 week, and I don't recommend that ever happening to anybody. But Haneke is such a nihilist, and he's such an asshole. Like he just from the quotes I've read about him, but also just like, he wants to be an asshole. He wants to kind of like make you feel nasty with what you're watching and wants you to be uncomfortable. And he's so good at it that I want to be angry, but I also applaud him for how well he's able to elicit these reactions and really make you confront your role in watching violence. Like, I just remember in the 1997 one, I think there was a lot to do with, I think there was a bunch of wars going on in Europe and Eastern Europe, and there are like footage on TV of the war, of the news happening. So there's like in 1997, there's this look at how we watch violence every day on media, and then it makes perfect sense, like you guys have been saying about 2007, when there is this resurgence of violence, but like entertainment violence, not just violence in the news, but like we are all willingly going to pay and watch these films. So Haneke is very smart, and he's also a dick.
Well, go ahead. I'll say what's interesting to me is when I finished it again, I like my first text to Patrick was like, "Fuck, this was goddamn miserable to get through again." And I thought it was maybe the nihilism still. That was actually again the second thing I said was like, I just don't have the space for this nihilism. But I realized I've been burning through Shinya Tsukamoto's movies, which are, Tetsuo the Iron Man, he did, Killing, and he did Bullet Ballet, and I was like, fuck, these are equally nihilistic, but I think the difference for me is the nihilism exists within this plot and this fictional space, and I'm still invested in those characters, and their nihilism isn't necessarily spilling out into my life. Whereas like the nihilism of funny games 100% makes you reflect on your own interactions with, you know, violence and movies in real life. And I think that might be why funny games registered with me so differently this time around.
I don't know. I read a review that I agreed with. I think I love funny games. You know, we're not there yet, but you know, this movie gets a lot of broken eggs for me. I think he fails a little here. You know, he says, you know, if you you know, leave this movie, you don't need it. If you stay, you don't. I've stayed through this movie a lot because I care for the characters. Like, he made me care for the characters. Like, that's not, there is no, I'm not watching this for the violence. There is no violence on screen. You know, I don't, like, I don't know. There's something about, I almost want to say he made it too well. Like, there's so many interesting
I can totally
things
see that
in there where
about.
like I don't feel the punishment as much as I should, because there's so many interesting things going on. The lack of music except at the beginning and the end, the interesting playing with time and the rules and amazing acting and the subversion of the plant and payoff at the end with the knife. There's just so much that I come back to that's not the violence.
Yeah.
That I don't feel punished. I mean, it's not something that's been done only once. There's a couple, you know, other movies out there that punish the viewer or whatever. Even recently, Unfriended Dark Web was like, oh, you know, there's people paying to watch. What are we doing? You know, and End of Evangelion literally is an anime that turns the camera around onto the audience, a live action audience, and shows them what shitty people they've been. This one, it's a miserable experience, but I don't feel punished from watching it for liking movies like Hostel and Saw, which I do as well.
Yeah.
I honestly feel worse about it from a movie like Cabin in the Woods, because it's using the same style and tropes and you know the same. That's a movie that feels like those movies and shows me the manipulation, whereas this doesn't feel like a horror movie, so I don't feel punished for watching horror movies.
Oh.
If that makes sense. I rambled a lot.
No, that does make sense, though. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Like, it makes me feel shitty about real life violence.
Yeah, that's what I meant too. It's more about real life than my movie tastes.
Yeah, that's a good point, because I guess, like, I think what Haneke thinks he's doing, and I've thought too much about this, is like he's somehow trying to equate cinematic violence with real violence, I think. And I don't always think that's successful, because again, he's using cinema to do that. So
yeah, his essay has a lot of concern that we, through these movies, will get desensitized to violence, which, I mean, we've been hearing that on the news for decades, right? I mean, there's something to be said about, you know, if I'd be interested to see if he were to make another one of these, if he'd include, you know, the type of violence we now see randomly when we're scrolling Twitter. I mean, that's a whole different issue, but that's all real life. You guys know the horror people. I don't think there's a group of us who think it's easier to watch like a snuff film because we've seen every Saw movie.
That is a great point, because I'm going to be perfectly honest, I did not care for this movie on this watch. Yeah. And because of it felt very moralizing to me in a way. And as soon as what I want to do when I'm watching a movie, especially if it's something that's not resonating with me, is that I will like try to go do some research. And I did find an interview that he did with Entertainment Weekly. I think it was back in 2008. And they were talking about this movie. And the interview question was, you show almost no acts of actual on-screen violence in funny games, or why do you show almost no acts of actual violence? And the response was, I don't really want to be part of this violence pornography of the mass media. And then the follow-up question is, based on what you just said, it does seem like you intend the film to be a critique of Hollywood violence. And he says, yes, of course, I've never said otherwise. I've said in many interviews that I very much dislike the consummation of violence as it's depicted in some Hollywood movies. I'm not making any secret of that. And they asked him about how it's almost identical to the original and why did you decide to remake it? And his response was because the German language version did not find the English language audience for the film for which the film was originally meant. So he wanted to remake it because no one in America had actually seen it. So his point of view seems very pointed in the interviews and in the film to a specific kind of film. And it's the films that, I mean, I kind of grew up on, and I always think you have Haneke on one side, and then you have Wes Craven on the other, who is saying that horror is sort of like boot camp for the soul, boot camp for the psyche, because it allows you to conceptualize and deal with specific cars that just decide to drive by with no mufflers in the middle of my point. Because it allows you to take concepts that we're afraid of and view it on screen and sort of be able to deal with it, rationalize it, and move forward as sort of boot camp for empathy in a way. And he sees them as empathy machines, and you have Haneke, who is basically the exact opposite from what I've seen. And so my first viewing of this really just kind of made me angry, if I'm honest.
Yeah, it's not. I mean, his approach to it isn't as a movie; it's an essay.
Yeah,
it's just a visual essay, and I don't know what else to say.
He even makes jokes about that by the end, like when Naomi Watts' character is falling asleep, and like he's like, "Oh, you're falling asleep," and like that's definitely pointed towards the audience who is burning the fuck out at that point in the movie. Like I
think the original even had. I think there are a couple differences. The original had even more of that in the dialogue. The original is like, "Oh, why are you still doing this? So that it can be feature length? Come on."
Yeah,
I was wondering about that because I did hear that comment in some review that I found, and I don't remember that being in this movie. So I was curious if that was in the original.
Just the original. Yeah, there's like 2 or 3 line differences, between the two.
But okay, so the fourth wall breaks in particular, I had like various opinions to them, but like they definitely had a definite pointed message to it. The sort of kind of going along that, well, it's not feature length thing is one of the questions is, why don't you just kill us? And you shouldn't forget the importance of entertainment. And
thesis.
And then Michael Haneke reaches out through your TV and boops you on the nose, and then his arm retracts through the TV and lets you keep watching. Yeah.
Exactly. Well, and it seemed like the most evident in the scene where that kind of precedes the death of the kid, where one of the characters, and I'll be honest, I have a hard time remembering which one is Peter and which one is Paul. I'm pretty sure that's the intention, but one of them is sitting in front of the television. He's, skimming through the whatever's on TV, and there's like news reports and there's stuff about the environment, and he's like skipping through all of it, and he settles on NASCAR.
America.
Yes, exactly. And it's this mindless form of entertainment about watching cars drive around in circles for very fast for hours at a time. And that is what he is watching. And then the other character walks in and they start talking about Beavis and Butthead. They call each other Beavis and Butthead. So obviously he has a specific point in mind for American culture and American cinema and what passes for entertainment in America with just that one
really
scene.
Which is really interesting considering how the movie starts and ends. I mean, it starts with a conversation about different opera and composers, and it's very intelligent, and then it ends the same way. They're talking about like quantum physics or something on the boat. Like, these are very educated people. Like, all 5 of these people are extremely educated, but when it boils down to the meat of it, we got to play the role we got to play.
Yeah, we do.
I will say the beginning hit me probably significantly, at least like the cut to metal music. I think when I was younger, I didn't quite understand exactly emotionally what that needed to mean. At that point, I think, my tiny 14-year-old brain was like, oh, it's like hardcore because it's metal music and it's a horror movie. And now it's like, you've got this suburban family unaware of this horror bubbling all around them and underneath them. And like, they have no fucking idea, but we do. And that got me a lot more into it, at least when I first started watching it this time around, and then I slowly devolved into.
I think one of his other failures with this movie, again, a movie I love, is not making it obvious enough that you're not supposed to like the family. I think to him, he's coded this family as these golf-loving yuppies, rich people in the country who have, golden retriever and, don't give out eggs and are basic and boring, and of course they're educated and like went to Yale or something. People he probably he doesn't like.
Well, and I thought about this. This was my first thought watching this movie, and one of the first notes I took was that I thought that the drive was an interesting subversion of what we typically expect of an American family, where they're on a long drive and they're playing I Spy or something, right? Or they're playing like 20 questions. No, they are playing Guess the Composer of this opera.
That's not relatable.
Score. But it really is establishing their personality and what he thinks of them. But what I think is interesting, though, is that it goes from this operatic where it's a focus on lyrics and everything is just how beautifully you can sing, and the amount and the focus on words. And if you look up the lyrics for Bonehead by Naked City that comes blaring in, it is literally roar, yeah, ah, ooh, hey, and roar. That is like the
hell yeah.
That is like the lyrics. So it goes from being about lyricism and about that kind of beautifulness to literally unintelligible sounds are the lyrics for that song. And I thought that was a really interesting thing on this watch for me personally.
Yeah, I wonder if the movie would work better for you if the movie style did that as well. The movie style is always lyrical. It's always composed. It never gets out of control.
Even at its most depraved, it actually gets the most control, which is very bizarre and cool. But
I mean, all my love for this movie comes from that's different and weird, and that's funny.
Well, there's this moment where Michael Pitt's character says, "I'm hungry. Can I have a sandwich?" And they're all tied up on the couch, and they just like look at. That's one of my favorite lines from the movie, because he's like, "Oh, I'm hungry. Can I have something to eat?" And they just look at him like they had the shit kicked out of them. They're all tied up. The kid is wearing a bag on his head at this point, and he's like, "I'm gonna go eat." And he walks out of the room, and that's when he fires the gun.
Yeah.
And it's not funny. Like, I shouldn't laugh, which is terrible, but it's just like,
I think it's funny.
It's kind of funny because it's so calculated and it's so obviously like planned out and performative. And he's like, "Oh yes, I'm going to go to the kitchen and make a sandwich." And it's just so obvious, but it's so like, you want to laugh at the same time that you want to be like, "Ooh, fuck!" Like a kid was just murdered.
Yeah, God, that kid's face.
I did realize just how much of this must have, to tie it around to the title of your podcast, scarred both me and Patrick for life, because a lot of the style choices in this, whether or not we meant to, seeped out into both of our first two movies, Bastard and Threshold. There's a lot of stuff that I hadn't remembered was in this movie that made it into those two. I mean, Threshold immediately cuts to a punk song, like from Silence. Bastard has a bunch of empty static shots of like, or long held shots of stuff happening, including at the most brutal part of the movie, for which, if you haven't seen it, I'm going to spoil it now. There's a C-section at the end, and it's an uncut, long ass, well, it was initially, then the MPAA made us cut it, but it was an uncut, like 2.5 minute long shot of the C-section. I was like, fuck, we must have internalized the shooting style of this movie so much, because it's,
but just the style, because we're very, I mean, you guys liked Threshold, or so I've heard. It's a very empathetic movie.
It is, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, okay, so I'm glad you brought up the static shots, because my favorite shot of this movie, or the one that made me nauseous, was the static shot of Naomi Watts getting up after they
trying to untie herself.
Yeah, so Peter and Paul have left. They basically make it sound like, oh, okay, it's over, we're bored. So she leaves, and it's just the camera sitting there as she struggles to get up. She's in a bra and underwear. Her son is laying lifeless on the floor, and there's blood on the wall. And then her husband is laying down on the floor. So it looks like they're both dead. And she is just like doing her damnedest to stand up and untie herself. And it is just agonizing. Like, it feels like it's 15 minutes long, and it's not, but like, she is trying so hard to keep her shit together. And it, you know, who knows if this is what Haneke like wanted to do, but this really felt like you have to sit with the consequences of violence. Like, a lot of time in movies that violence happens and you don't really see like the emotional devastation afterward. But here you have to watch her just absolutely struggle her ass up. And then you find out her husband's alive, but then Tim Roth's like screaming.
Yeah.
Those moments are just nauseating because it feels so real. And apparently Tim Roth can never watch that movie because Georgie, their son, looks just like Tim Roth's son. And so he had a very hard time filming this, and he can't watch it because it makes him think too much of his own kid.
Yeah, especially on Naomi Watts, and like that long shot and untying herself. There's no faking there. You can't fake.
She hits her back so hard on that table when she stands up.
God,
it's brutal.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
That's actually I use the word favorite because I don't know what else to say, but that is actually the aftermath of that death when they leave is my favorite part of the film, because we're focusing on the mundaneness of trying to deal with the trauma and deal with the situation that they just witnessed. For, you know, her trying to get up, trying to get dressed, helping him up, trying to be strong for him. They try to get out of the house. The door is locked. They try the phone. It's working, but the calls won't come out. So like they're having to use a dryer to try to dry out the battery. It's just, there's so much time is spent on this aftermath that it's just like, it's almost more intense than what followed or than what became.
Well, because it's the only emotional part of the movie.
Yeah.
It's the only part where Haneke's actually flexing muscles he uses a lot, which are he uses his nihilism a lot, but he's also really good at, humanistic character pieces and watching for 25 minutes these two parents grieve. It's the only character stuff we have in the movie. Nothing happens before the attack.
Well, and that's what I think when you said that the movie fails in a way, and I think this is the part that I think really makes it fail, and that instead of following the killers, you stay with the family, and he strikes up that emotional connection with them. Like, they
so
are
much.
people. Yeah, they're humanized. And I feel like in including that, it kind of contradicts his point.
He's chastising us for rooting for their death whill making us not root for their death.
Yeah, it's very strange. It's very
that's
strange.
Even planted somewhat early on, and yes, they seem snooty from the intro, sort of gently snooty from the pick the composer. But the second they get in the house, there's clearly marital problems. There's clearly like issues where if he wanted us to hate them, I don't think those would have been there, because they were like very real, like very relatable issues where like they both don't know how to deal with the dog and they're passing it back and forth, and like he misunderstands her and doesn't take her seriously when she comes in, but not in like a way you can get why he doesn't get why she is so upset, and it's very
he doesn't know how to do that. This is why it's very hard, and I'm trying to say this in the most non-gatekeepy way possible. It's very hard to make a satirical or a critical bit about horror if you don't like horror.
Yeah.
Yes.
And he clearly does not like horror.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. Like, that's true. Like, it doesn't feel like he's seen a horror movie.
Yeah.
It's just like he just heard about them, and he's like, okay, this is what they are.
And it's equally apparent when you think of something like, I guess, obviously a different message, but something like Shaun of the Dead, which is mocking one of the biggest subgenres of horror, and it does it on every level that only a horror fan could understand.
Yep.
And if you like kind of consider these movies back to back, you're like, this is someone on the outside of a bubble looking in at the bubble being like, this is a dumb bubble. Whereas like Shaun of the Dead is someone inside the bubble being like, this is a sick bubble, but there's a lot of stupid issues with it, but I'm going to stay in here anyway.
But there are things that I do appreciate the way that he. Okay, so Peter and Paul, the names. I'm trying to figure out how to parse this out exactly. But okay, so the names feel interchangeable to me, because I like I said before, I was confused as to which one was Paul and which one's Peter, and of course they start calling each other Tom and Jerry, and they start calling each other Beavis and Butthead, and so there's obviously something at play here where we're not supposed to really identify them, and the way that they talk about their backstory, it was interesting to me because there's different stories that they come up with. And all of them are kind of tropes that we see in horror, where he calls one of the characters that he's gay. You know, this is why he's gay, because he has a mama affection. So you have the idea of the queer-coded villain, which is a trope in horror. Or you have like, well, they're just white trash, or that they're druggies, or that they have nothing, and they're, you know, so like he goes through all the gamut of reasons for why they could be doing this, and there are actually reasons for why the villain does things in a bunch of horror movies. And so it was moments like that I was like, okay, I can kind of see what you're doing here. And I can kind of see that you have an understanding of at least the villain aspect of it. But I don't think he quite gets the more human aspect of it, the more empathetic aspect of why we appreciate horror, I think.
I totally agree with that. It is difficult to talk about this because clearly both Patrick and I really appreciate this movie on many levels. It was just very odd today to have a watch after not having seen it since I was 14 and having it impact me so much, and being like, I'm clearly not in the same like headspace I was when I first saw this, and it has radically changed how I look at it now. Still appreciate it a lot, though.
So is this movie emblematic of like his approach to? Because again, this is the first time I've seen this movie. Is this a typical Haneke film?
I've literally only seen 3 of his, and they're Funny Games, and The Seventh Continent, which is one of the most depressing movies I've ever seen. But he's also made a movie called Amour, so I don't know.
So the thing with Haneke is that the violence in all of his movies are sad as fuck. Yeah. Like this is an emblem. Like I think this is like a Haneke movie that if you watch it, you'll kind of get a sense of what he does, because the rest of his movies, like there's The Piano Teacher, there's Cash, there's Amour, that aren't necessarily as violent, but they're so upsetting. And he tries to reach into like a deeper level of understanding humans and their emotions and the weird dark parts of humanity, particularly around grief and trauma. And this one isn't as emotionally deep, but I think it gives you a really good sense of his nihilism and how he kind of just seems to want to shove this stuff in your face and make you really look at and think about the ways that you consume media.
Wow.
Piano Teacher's good, but it's really traumatic.
Yeah, I was talking to a lot of people yesterday during the Oscars, a week or so ago at the Oscars.
The image is broken. We're recording this on Alien Day.
This isn't live.
I think we can just dub it over, and you guys can one of you can just record a voice saying "a week ago" over when he said it, and it'll edit together just fine. Don't worry about it.
I'll play that clip of that song about a week ago and just splice that in on top of it. Yeah,
and then we'll get a DMCA attack, and the episode will never see light of day. What were you going to say?
This last year, I haven't wanted anything emotional. I haven't wanted to watch anything emotionally stressful one bit. I've watched a bunch of Scott Adkins movies and B-70s flicks, and that's it. Like, I haven't wanted to be more stressed than the world's already made me. So, Haneke, for probably a few more months, can fuck off.
You heard it here, folks.
Well, and quite a few of the ones that you haven't seen are about death and like people dying.
Unlike Funny Games.
Yeah, I said that and I was like, shit, that's not what I meant to say.
No families die in Funny Games.
No one dies in Funny Games. Everyone survives and has a happy ending. But his other films are very much about like family members dying and family members traumatizing you and just like complex familial interpersonal relationships that are just full of toxic dynamics. So yeah, probably don't watch any of them for a while.
Or you can watch one of those and then follow up with Threshold, which comes out on the other side of a toxic familial relationship, and you get to see some bonding and some mending.
May 3rd on Arrow. You heard it here.
The day that you're listening to this.
Today, in fact.
Today, damn it, pal.
Today
on Arrow.
Fuck me.
We're so good at this.
Yeah. This is actually all a Michael Haneke, Funny Games-esque takedown of recording live on podcasts.
Where's Paul and his remote when you need it?
We should do I don't know, the royal we should do a double feature of Funny Games, then Threshold, and be like, guys, you got two ends of the spectrum here. It's great. Yeah, probably the weirdest double feature.
Emotionally drain you and then put you through an emotional ringer immediately after.
Yeah, just two different kinds, sort of. Yeah. Anyway.
Actually, though, if you go to Arrow today, there is a section, a Robinson and Young section of selections we've made that we thought would pair well with the movie or that we've liked.
In the past, because today is clearly not when we've done it.
Yes.
I took a sip of my coffee and almost shot it out of my nose, so thank you for that. Thank you. I truly appreciate it. What are some of the movies that we could see on your list?
That is a great question.
Have you picked them yet? I can cut this out if you haven't picked them yet.
Well, we haven't trimmed down.
We mixed in a good mix of like, oh, these ones have to do with family. These ones were low budget. These ones we just like. And so we picked things like Who Killed Captain Alex? Other low budget, quote unquote, miracles, or similarly After Midnight, which is another low budget miracle that had a similar route
and
to us.
And something that no matter what, Patrick will not let me edit off this list. That I won't let you let me. Whatever, you get it. Crow Hand. It's a short film that I saw years ago, like 5 years ago, at a festival.
It's exactly how it sounds.
And it is exactly what it sounds like. It's like
it is as descriptive of the movie as Terrified.
A husband gets more than he bargains for when he picks up a mysterious crow totem off the ground, much to his wife's chagrin.
And that's it. That's it. There's nothing more to the movie. It's like 2 minutes long, and that's you get what you came for.
It's great.
Is it animated?
No. Nope, live.
That's okay. The poster just looks.
Yes.
Oh my god! Wow.
That, and then I will say to go back to Tsukamoto. I just saw Killing again recently. It goes by Zon, but on IMDb. But Killing, 100%. Again, one of the ones that's staying on for me. Yeah, loved it. It's fucked up, and also very emotional.
And then, I included Hellraiser 3 on there because I just had a crush on Terry Farrell. And
Hell yeah. Here for it.
Cool. That's a good reason, though.
Terry's are good.
Hell yeah, we are.
Funny game. I just don't know how to bridge this.
Let me look at my notes.
The
is there anything else I wanted to say?
Okay, hold on. So Terry put a note down that called Funny Games the Seinfeld of horror movies. And I really...
Okay.
I desperately need to understand why you wrote that.
I'm opening up Premiere right now to change the opening Screamo song to the Seinfeld theme.
I'm gonna do it for a preview.
I'm already literally opening up the video program. I've got this.
But please.
Sorry to expose you, Terry, but it cracked me the fuck up, so I needed to understand what that meant.
I almost didn't write that in our shared document, but I just feel like this movie is Much Ado About Nothing. I'm sorry to say,
you gotta keep going. I have to understand.
Seinfeld is a show about nothing.
Because Seinfeld is a show about nothing? Well, no, I think Haneke literally says it's a show about, or it's a movie about nothing, right? About nothing.
Oh, does he?
He said something to that
Terry,
effect.
you were so much deper than you ever knew.
That's exactly why I wrote it down. I was tapping into his, no, I honestly, I think, and I guess we'll get to this a little bit more when I'm giving my review, but I do think this movie is very well constructed. By the end of it, and I was like, okay, I just feel like I watched a Seinfeld episode where I get what it's going for, but at the end of the day, I'm like, okay, that was Much Ado About a 5-minute thesis that I could have gotten, and just like,
damn, Terry.
Any well-versed viewer, the second they start playing the game, and he looks at the camera, everyone's like, oh, I get it, So if there's nothing else there that you're truly enjoying, or if you're not, then,
Part of me wondered on this watch again if this could have been better suited as a short film.
absolutely.
Like you just said, there's a thesis in there that probably didn't need to be this long. Conversely, I understand why he wanted it to be this long, because that's how he wanted to hammer it home. So I get it.
Yeah, he wanted it to be miserable.
He wanted to be, front to, and it is front to back. But like, there is a world where I think you could definitely, if you needed to, get the same idea across very quickly.
Come on, Terry. You don't like watching like a long movie about a family just getting absolutely tortured?
No family dies in Funny Game. We established no families die in Funny Games.
No death. Nor animals. No animals were harmed in the making of this film.
I think back to, I had mentioned offline a Roger Ebert review, which turns out it wasn't written by Roger Ebert. It was written by Jim Emerson, but it was on RogerEbert.com, and I read it back in 2008, which is the reason why I never sought out this film. And I guess in my entire time had just attributed it that it was Roger Ebert's review. But he's talking about how he quotes Michael Haneke, and he says, anyone who leaves the cinema doesn't need the film. Anybody who stays does. And then he continues with that train of thought and says an even better response theoretically would be to storm the booth and rip out the film out of the projector, thus symbolically declaring your refusal to swallow the forceful medicinal doses of synthesized abuse the film is administering.
Damn.
This movie wasn't for me.
What I'd be curious of is if you gave it like 2 years, got to a different point in your life and tried to rewatch it again. Because I definitely feel like this is a movie that, depending on not only your mood, but like how your last 6 months has been going, you might find things you appreciate in it you didn't.
That's very true.
I guess you could,
but I guess the other side is that I have spent, like, especially since COVID started, I've spent most of my free time watching horror movies, either for, reviewing for festivals or for podcast prep or for just entertainment. Like, so I've spent the last year kind of finding my solace, I guess, through what's been going on, through kind of the comfort of watching something that is a controlled bit of mania, a controlled bit of chaos, controlled bit of horror that is something that I feel like I have some kind of control over. And so
and here comes a movie saying fuck
exactly.
you for that.
And so that probably has absolutely, I can't even say probably, that absolutely has contributed at least part of my disdain for it, to be perfectly honest, because I have spent the last year using this as my coping mechanism to be told, fuck you, you're fucked up. That's kind of the feeling I got out of this film.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's also difficult to watch a movie that hates itself for being that. Like, that makes it an interesting, like, it is both sadistic and masochistic in that way.
Yeah. It kind of, in some ways, wants to have its cake and eat it too, it feels like, by the end of it. And that was, again, I think, why I was thinking this sort of Seinfeld-esque feel to it. But
I fucking love that. It's S&M Seinfeld, and I'm here for it, I guess. Apparently.
Guys, I'm done. I'm exporting.
Oh my god. Oh my god. I love it.
Oh my god. This is amazing.
Also, welcome to another glimpse into how Patrick and I function when we're editing and working together. Like, we have an editor, William Ford Conway, who we love, but eventually we take the drive from him and do our final tweaks. And usually that involves me and Patrick dropping in horrendously bad needle drops here or there.
This is a beautiful working relationship. I love this.
I will send Terry weird clips of when I'm editing, which yesterday included a potential ghost voice on one of our episodes, which scared the shit out of me.
Nice.
And I was like, Terry, you have to fucking listen to this because I have no idea what's happening. So...
Pal, we can't, if we're talking about this, we can't not talk about the surprise edit in our movie in Threshold.
Which one?
That we received, the first draft. And
the
first
Lord.
edit
I thought you meant something that we had done. Just
No,
surprise.
no,
Okay,
no.
yeah. I've been rambling. You've been editing. You take it. You take this one.
Okay, so... this is... We're going to get into some spoilers here for people who have not seen Threshold.
We will put I'll put time codes in the description of the podcast so y'all can skip ahead of it if you don't want to get spoiled.
Great. At the end of the movie, big naked Colt guy, right?
Yep.
Yes.
He was very comfortable on set, remaining or being mostly naked. And he arrived on set many, many hours before we had planned to use him.
Because we had to bring him out with us because we couldn't afford to pay for his gas, so we had to drive him out.
Mm-hmm. And he was getting a little bored, and he asked if he could be in one of the shots. And we were shooting the shots of them walking through the house. And obviously, as you've seen, no one is supposed to be there. And he wanted to be in one. And, you know, we were paying this guy $100 to come be naked on our fucking iPhone movie, right? So we said, sure, you can follow him in one shot. And so we filmed it. There's a shot of Leo walking through the bathroom, and there goes naked Colt dude right behind him. God. And so we're good. You know, we let him do that. He's very nice. Let's move on.
But what's funny about it is also the door frames in the house were very small, so he's only in it for like a second and a half. And this guy just kind of creeps through the background wearing a cheap Goodwill mask. Cause like we only thought we were going to see them at night. You know, we thought these black masks that we had bought, they're maybe $3. And like it has one of those elastic strings that like Halloween masks have. So it looks like crap.
Oh yeah, I forgot he was wearing the mask.
Yeah, he just kind of like slowly creeps through this door frame and then disappears.
He got from Goodwill. and for a little frame of, and so we got through the night, shot everything he needed to shot.
He was wonderful. He's very fun to work with.
Michael Q. Schmidt.
Yeah.
But, so this movie we shot based off of an outline, a 20-page outline that had no third act. The third act in our outline was day 9, they arrive. So everything from when they drive up to the house to the end of the movie was completely unplanned, until the day before we shot it. It was completely made up the day before and rendered to everyone vocally. We didn't even really write it out. And everything before that even got a little bit jumbled, and some stuff we didn't shoot, some stuff we added in. So we handed off all of the footage to our editor and basically ghosted. We were exhausted, needed to take a break. We handed him the footage and the 20-page outline and basically disappeared for 2 months.
We did forget how much we'd changed on the road because it was a time vortex and a complete black hole in our memories, but a lot had changed.
Yeah, and so our editor had no idea what order the third act was supposed to go in. There was the actual literal finale when they're in the car and the Colt arrives and everything. He literally couldn't edit it. He put in the title cards and it sent us an email like, "I'm so sorry, guys. I didn't know what to do here." And I was like, "Oh no, we just didn't tell you."
We also didn't know. Yeah. So.
Yeah. But we were watching the first draft together. And they get to the house, and he's walking through the house, and in the cut is the shot of the naked Colt guy walking behind him. And we called our editor, and he's like, "Why would you guys shoot that if you weren't going to use it?" He had no idea the house was supposed to be empty. He thought we just did a bad job at 10 He was like...
A failure at foreshadowing.
And what was funny was, it was the first time all of us had seen a rough edit of a movie of ours that we really genuinely thought was like, oh shit, this movie's actually working. And then it gets to that shot, and that happens, and we were like, oh no!
Like, how little faith do you have in us?
I would have lost it.
Oh my god. Wow.
Yeah, our reasoning for not having the ending written was we knew the improv would change everything. We knew the last third of the movie would probably need to be different by the time we'd shot most of it. But that did lead to, complications like our editor not having any idea what the hell we had made.
That's amazing.
God bless his soul, he figured it out.
Thank you for editors. Thank you to editors. On that note, as the editors of our own podcast, I don't know where this is going. I tried my hardest. Do we want to wrap this up and give us a rating out of 5?
Is it out of 5 or out of 4 eggs? Because the movie only had 4 eggs. So
well, we're gonna
12 technically.
God damn it!
They break all 12.
It's out of 12. It's out of a dozen.
Well, you have a dozen. You're going shopping on Monday. Come on, guys.
It's over. We're done.
Why did we pick broken eggs?
I thought it was funny, and then I didn't think about it hard enough, and now I feel like a fool. Regardless of how many eggs are in a carton, Terry, how many broken eggs out of 5 do you give Funny Games?
Well, I guess lucky for Paul, I only would need 2 of those eggs, so he could have the rest. Because this movie didn't work for me. I think it's a beautifully made film. He's obviously very skilled. I love the shots. I love the cinematography. I love the static image that kind of creates this sort of window that we're looking into. It's not flashy. I love the performances. I thought on paper, this thing seems like it would be perfect for me, but maybe it's the time that I'm watching it in. Maybe it's my attitude right now, but it did not work for me on a purely structural level. And for that, I am only I don't know why I'm keeping broken eggs, but I'm keeping 2 of those broken eggs and offering them up to the group. What about you, Mary Beth?
I'm going to take the 4 eggs they initially wanted and just smash them on top of their heads. Yeah, so there's going to be 4 smashed eggies on their heads. This movie is relentless, but I think it's really well done. I think some of the shots and the writing and the performances by Naomi Watts and Tim Roth make this movie amazing to watch. Naomi Watts is perfect, and it's relentless, and I don't want to watch it again, but I also I appreciate Haneke's filmmaking style and what he was trying to do. I don't think it always lands, but I think it's very clever, and I think it's very well done. And I also am entertained by the idea that he remade his own movie so Americans would watch it. I just think that's hysterical. So yeah, 4 broken.
I mean, that's the biggest read of us, right? And it's the truth that we won't watch a foreign film, but you remake it in English and we'll gobble it up. So really, right there, he could have just stopped right there,
That's
and he
true.
would have been a perfect satire of American culture.
Very true. Okay, Powell and Patrick, you have the final word. P squared. How many broken eggs do you give Funny Games?
I think I'm trying to weigh my original viewing of it, because it did have such a lasting impact on me creatively.
Yeah.
And on my view of making movies. And back then I probably would have given it, 4 broken eggs. I think right now I would have given it, more closer to a Terry 2. We would have made 4 together, but I think I'm going to average it out. I'm going to give it 3.5. I'm going to give it 3 broken eggs and a yolk.
Okay. Cool.
What about you, Patrick?
Sorry, that's fucking stupid.
I'm do I have to be creative? Thanks, guys. This movie means a lot to me. Obviously, I mean, I recognize all its flaws, and it's one of those things where I realize a lot of its failures, and I probably shouldn't like it as much as I do, but I do. And so since it means so much to the origins of, my storytelling and filmmaking style, I'll give it 4 eggs cracked under the weight of its own mother.
Holy shit. Yeah.
Damn.
All right.
I love that. Well, thank you so much, Patrick and Powell, for joining us to talk about Funny Games. Where can the listeners find you, and what do you have that you'd like to share?
Nothing. No, I'm primarily on Instagram, at least socially. Patrick is our Twitter person. I don't quite get Twitter yet. I'm still working on it. But I'm on Instagram. I got the website. Patrick?
Yeah, I'm mostly on Twitter, just young enough. Our film is on Instagram, Threshold_film. You can watch our movie today on Arrow. You can watch our previous movie, Bastard, which is a more typical 80s retro hack and slash, spines ripped out, heads chopped off, with also empathy. You can rent that on Amazon, iTunes, what have you.
Yeah, I feel like Bastard is what happens, is a good view of what happens when we're left alone. When no one's telling us what to do, or we're watching how things come out.
Yeah, but Threshold is in the title card at the beginning spells it out. It is a film by all 5 of us. Madison West, Joey Millen, Lauren Bates, Patrick R. Young, Powell Robinson. We all made this movie together. It is all our movie. and that is very evident. And I just emailed you guys funny Seinfeld.
Fuck yeah. Okay, that will be posted on our Twitter account.
Seinfeld games.
Seinfeld games. Amazing. Okay, so listeners, you've heard from us, but we want to hear from you. What was your experience with funny games? You can send us an email at scarredforlifepodcast@gmail.com, or you can reach out to us directly on Twitter. I'm at MB McAndrews.
And I'm at Gaily Dreadful.
And of course, don't forget to follow the podcast on Twitter at Scarred Podcast.
And please don't forget to review, rate, and subscribe.
Thank you to Eric Power for our artwork. Thank you to Sean Keller for our music. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Please stay safe out there. Most importantly, stay creepy.
And until next time.
Somebody please think of the Somebody please think of the children. Somebody please think of the children.
Acast powers the world's best podcasts. Here's a show that we recommend.
What is The Briefing Room?
It's a behind-the-scenes look at how the criminal justice system works and the lives of the people within that system.
If you love true crime, well, these are the real people who do the job every day of making sure justice is served.
Hi, I'm Detective Dave.
I'm Detective Dan. Together we have decades of experience in local law enforcement, a profession that we think is often misunderstood.
So we're going to explore how to do it right, and we won't shy away from when it's done wrong. These are stories you'll hear nowhere else. Unique, frank, and unvarnished.
From the team that brought you Small Town Dicks, this is The Briefing Room. Episode 1 drops on August 30th. We'll meet you in the briefing room.
Acast helps creators launch, grow, and monetize their podcasts everywhere. Acast.com.